What would you do if the love you lost in high school reappeared, not as the confident person you once knew, but as a struggling single mother with 2 little girls by her side? Would you walk away or step in to change their lives forever? This is a story about love, redemption, and the power of second chances. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this life-changing journey. The sun was beginning to set over the bustling city streets, casting an amber glow on the sidewalks. Ethan Hawthorne, a young self-made billionaire, strode briskly along the busy intersection. His tailored suit and polished shoes made him stand out among the crowd of commuters, but his expression was one of quiet detachment. The success he had fought so hard for came at a cost, a life devoid of genuine connections. Ethan had learned to live with his solitude, channeling his energy into growing his business empire. Yet, as he crossed the street that day, something disrupted his carefully guarded world. There she was, sitting on the cold pavement with her 2 daughters huddled close. Sophia Brooks looked like a ghost of her former self. Ethan froze mid-step, his heart skipping a beat as his gaze locked onto her. Sophia's hair, once vibrant and full of life, now hung in disheveled waves around her tired face. Her clothes were worn, her eyes hollowed by exhaustion. Beside her sat 2 little girls, about 4 years old, clinging to her as if she were their only anchor. "Mommy, I am hungry," one of the girls whimpered, rubbing her small dirt-streaked hands over her teary eyes. Sophia pulled the child closer, her voice trembling as she whispered, "I know, sweetheart. Just a little longer. We'll find something soon." Ethan felt a sharp pang in his chest, a feeling he hadn't allowed himself in years. He couldn't look away from the heartbreaking scene. The woman before him wasn't just any stranger in need. This was Sophia Brooks, the girl he had once admired from a distance in high school, the girl who had unknowingly fueled his ambitions. Back then, she had been confident, brilliant, and full of dreams, a stark contrast to the vulnerable woman sitting on the ground now. His memories of her were vivid, the way her laughter used to fill the room, the sparkle in her eyes when she spoke of her future, but those memories were marred by his inability to approach her. She had barely noticed him back then, and when she did, it was to mock his awkward attempts to gain her attention. Now the roles had reversed in a way he could never have imagined. Ethan hesitated, his mind racing. Should he approach her? What would he even say? The years had changed them both, and he wasn't sure if she'd even recognize him. But as he watched Sophia stroke her daughter's hair with a desperate tenderness, something in him shifted. He couldn't walk away. Taking a deep breath, Ethan stepped closer, his heart pounding. "Sophia?" he said hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper. Sophia's head snapped up at the sound of her name. Her tired eyes widened as she met his gaze, a mixture of shock and disbelief flickering across her face. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of their shared history and the unexpected reunion hung heavily in the air. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "It's me, Ethan. What happened to you?" Sophia looked away, holding her daughters tighter. "It doesn't matter," she muttered. "We're fine." Ethan couldn't ignore the pain etched on Sophia's face or the desperation in her daughter's wide, innocent eyes. Standing there on the busy street corner, he felt an urgency he hadn't experienced in years, a need to act. "Come with me," Ethan said firmly, his voice steady yet gentle. Sophia shook her head, her grip tightening around the girls. "No, we're fine. We don't need your help," she murmured, though her trembling hands and exhausted expression betrayed her words. "You are not fine, Sophia. Your daughters need a warm place to stay, food to eat. Please, let me help." Her eyes flickered with hesitation. Pride and fear battled within her. But when Emma, the older twin, tugged at her sleeve and whispered, "Mommy, I am cold," Sophia's resolve crumbled. With a small nod, she accepted Ethan's outstretched hand. Ethan immediately pulled out his phone and called his driver. "Be here in 5 minutes," he instructed before slipping the phone back into his pocket. Turning to Sophia, he added, "We'll get you somewhere safe." The black SUV arrived moments later, its sleek frame standing in stark contrast to Sophia's tattered clothing. Ethan opened the door and helped her inside, lifting Emma into the back seat while Sophia carried Lily. The girls, too exhausted to protest, rested their heads on their mother's shoulders, their tiny bodies curling into her for warmth. The drive to Ethan's mansion was quiet, save for the hum of the engine. Sophia stared out the window, lost in thought. Her daughters were finally warm, their soft breathing signaling they'd fallen asleep. Ethan glanced at her from time to time, his mind racing with questions. What had happened to the bright, ambitious girl he once knew? When the car pulled up to his estate, Sophia's discomfort was evident. The grandeur of the sprawling mansion, with its perfectly manicured lawn and glowing lights, seemed like a world away from the cold pavement she had been sitting on just an hour ago. "You don't have to do this," Sophia said, her voice barely audible. Ethan ignored her protest. "You are coming inside, and that's final. You need rest, food, and a chance to breathe. Let me take care of this, at least for tonight." Reluctantly, Sophia followed him into the house. The warm air enveloped them as the door opened, and a housekeeper, Mrs. Harper, greeted Ethan with a surprised expression. He quickly explained the situation and instructed her to prepare a guest room for Sophia and the girls. As Mrs. Harper bustled away, Ethan led Sophia and the twins to the living room. He lit the fireplace, its crackling warmth spreading through the room. The girls stirred as the cozy heat reached them, their tiny faces relaxing for the first time in hours. "I'll have some food brought in," Ethan said, stepping aside to make a call. Minutes later, Mrs. Harper returned with bowls of hot soup, fresh bread, and glasses of milk. Sophia hesitated, but when Lily reached for the bread with wide eyes, she couldn't resist. "Thank you," she whispered to Ethan, her voice thick with emotion. "You don't need to thank me," Ethan replied, sitting across from her. "Just focus on getting some rest." As the girls ate eagerly, Sophia's eyes filled with tears. It had been so long since she'd seen them truly happy, even if only for a moment. Later that night, Ethan showed Sophia to the guest room. The cozy space was a stark contrast to the cold streets she had grown accustomed to. The bed was covered in soft linens, and the warm light of the bedside lamp bathed the room in a comforting glow. "This is too much," Sophia said, her voice trembling. "I can't. I don't deserve this." Ethan turned to her, his expression serious. "You deserve more than this, Sophia. You and your daughters deserve safety, stability, and a chance to rebuild. Don't push this away." She looked down at Emma and Lily, who were already fast asleep on the bed. Her heart ached with gratitude, but guilt gnawed at her. Accepting help was foreign to her, yet here was Ethan, offering it without hesitation. "I don't know how to repay you," she admitted. "Don't think about that now," Ethan said gently. "Just focus on yourself and the girls. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps together." As he left the room, Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, watching her daughters sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks. A tear slid down her cheek, but this time, it wasn't from despair, it was from a flicker of hope. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat in his office, staring out the window at the quiet night. The image of Sophia and her daughters haunted him, stirring something deep within. He didn't just want to help them, he needed to. For the first time in years, Ethan felt a purpose beyond his work. He didn't know what the coming days would bring, but he was determined to see Sophia and her daughters find their way back to the life they deserved. The morning sun filtered through the large windows of Ethan's mansion, casting a warm glow over the living room. Sophia sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Emma and Lily were playing quietly in the adjacent room under the watchful eye of Mrs. Harper. Ethan walked in, carrying 2 mugs of steaming coffee, and set one in front of Sophia. "Thank you," she murmured, not meeting his gaze. Ethan sat down across from her, studying her closely. Her face looked less weary this morning, but the sadness in her eyes was unmistakable. He cleared his throat. "Sophia, I don't mean to pry, but I need to understand. What happened to you?" Sophia tensed. her fingers gripping the hem of her sweater. She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "It's not a story I like to tell," she admitted softly. "I am not here to judge you," Ethan said, his voice gentle. "I just want to help." Sophia looked down, avoiding his gaze. The room fell silent except for the faint laughter of the twins in the next room. Finally, she began to speak, her voice low and filled with pain. "After high school, I thought my life was finally falling into place," she began. "I started dating Jack. Do you remember him?" Ethan stiffened at the mention of Jack's name. He remembered Jack all too well, popular, charming, and utterly ruthless when it came to getting what he wanted. Ethan nodded, his jaw tightening. "I was so in love with him," Sophia continued. "I thought he felt the same. For a while, everything seemed perfect. But then, I found out I was pregnant." She paused, her voice faltering. Ethan leaned forward slightly, his hands clasped together as he listened intently. "When I told Jack, I thought we'd face it together," she said, her tone bitter. "But instead, he walked away. He told me he wasn't ready to be a father and that I was on my own. That was the last time I saw him." Ethan's hands tightened into fists, his knuckles turning white. The idea of someone abandoning Sophia at her most vulnerable made his blood boil. "He just left you?" Ethan asked, his voice low and filled with anger. Sophia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "Yes, and suddenly everything fell apart. My parents tried to help, but they were struggling financially themselves. I worked as much as I could, but when Emma and Lily were born, things got harder. Childcare was expensive and I couldn't keep up with the bills." Her voice broke as she continued. "I lost my job when the twins were 2. Then I lost our apartment. We've been on the streets ever since, relying on the kindness of strangers just to survive." Ethan sat back, his chest heavy with the weight of her words. The image of the strong, confident girl he had admired in high school clashed sharply with the reality of the broken woman sitting before him now. "Why didn't you ask for help?" Ethan asked softly. Sophia let out a bitter laugh. "Ask who? Jack? My parents, who could barely feed themselves. And what about you, Ethan? Would you have believed me back then if I had knocked on your door, begging for help?" Ethan's expression softened. "Sophia, no one deserves to go through that, especially not someone like you." She wiped at her eyes, her voice trembling. "I didn't want anyone to see me like this. I was ashamed of how far I'd fallen, and I couldn't let anyone think I was weak, not even you." Ethan took a deep breath, his heart aching for her. "You are not weak, Sophia. The fact that you've kept going, that you've protected your daughters no matter what, it shows strength most people couldn't imagine." Sophia looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and vulnerability. For the first time in years, she felt seen. "I am here now," Ethan said firmly, "and I am not going anywhere. We're going to get through this together." For the first time in years, Sophia allowed herself to believe those words. A spark of hope ignited in her heart, one she hadn't felt in a very long time. The days following Sophia and her daughter's arrival at Ethan's mansion were a whirlwind of adjustments and tentative steps toward normalcy. The girls quickly grew comfortable in the spacious home, their laughter filling the once quiet halls. For Sophia, however, it wasn't as simple. Accepting help didn't come naturally, and every moment of comfort was shadowed by guilt and doubt. Ethan, noticing her unease, decided to have a conversation with her one morning over breakfast. "Sophia," he began, setting down his coffee cup, "I've been thinking about ways to help you get back on your feet, not just temporarily, but permanently." Sophia looked up from her plate, her brows furrowing. "Ethan, you've already done so much. I don't want to take advantage of your kindness." "You are not taking advantage," he replied firmly. "Think of this as an investment in your future and the girls' future. You've already shown incredible resilience. Now it's time to rebuild, step by step." Sophia hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Ethan took a folder from the seat beside him and slid it across the table. "Inside are options for business and entrepreneurship courses," he explained. "You are smart, determined, and more than capable of starting over. These programs will give you the tools to create something sustainable for yourself and your daughters." She opened the folder and skimmed the materials, her heart racing. The idea of going back to school or learning something new excited her, but it also terrified her. "Ethan, this is too much. I don't even know where to start." "That's why I'll be here to help," he said with a reassuring smile. "You don't have to do this alone. And while you are studying, I'll make sure the girls are taken care of." Sophia's lips trembled as she processed his words. It wasn't just the opportunity that moved her, it was Ethan's unwavering belief in her. After years of feeling invisible and incapable, someone finally saw her potential. Within a week, Sophia enrolled in an introductory business program at a local community college. Ethan had arranged for a housekeeper to look after the girls while she attended classes during the day. The first few weeks were challenging. Sophia often doubted herself, overwhelmed by the coursework and the feeling that she was too far behind to catch up. Ethan became her biggest cheerleader. Each evening, he would sit with her in the living room as she pored over her assignments. Sometimes he helped explain concepts she struggled with. Other times he simply offered words of encouragement. "You are doing better than you think," he said one night, noticing her frustration as she worked through a finance problem. Sophia sighed, leaning back in her chair. "It just feels like tea here is so much to learn. I am scared I'll fail." Ethan leaned forward, his gaze steady. "You won't fail, Sophia. You've already overcome so much. This is just another step forward. And even if you stumble, I'll be right here to help you get back up." Her eyes softened, and for the first time she allowed herself to believe that she could succeed. As Sophia gained confidence in her studies, Ethan offered her a temporary position at his company as a project assistant. The role was designed to be flexible, allowing her to balance work, school, and time with her daughters. Walking into the sleek office on her first day was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. Sophia was introduced to Ethan's team, who welcomed her warmly. Her responsibilities included organizing schedules, tracking project progress, and preparing reports tasks she initially found daunting but quickly grew into. Her first big test came during a team meeting. Ethan encouraged her to share her thoughts on a logistics challenge the company was facing. Nervously, Sophia proposed a solution she had brainstormed the night before. "That's an excellent idea," one of the executives said, nodding in approval. Ethan smiled proudly. "We'll implement it immediately. Great work, Sophia." Her heart swelled with pride. For the first time in years, she felt capable and valued. While Sophia focused on her studies and work, Emma and Lily thrived in their new environment. They adored the garden, spending hours playing on the swings Ethan had installed for them. One afternoon, as Sophia watched her daughters run through the grass, she realized how much had changed. Just weeks ago, they were sleeping on cold pavement, unsure of where their next meal would come from. Now they were laughing, carefree, and full of life. Ethan often joined them in these moments, playing tag with the girls or helping them with their puzzles. He became a steady presence in their lives, someone the girls looked up to and trusted. "You are amazing with them," Sophia said one evening as they watched the twins draw at the kitchen table. "They're incredible kids," Ethan replied, his voice warm. "It's impossible not to care about them." Sophia's chest tightened with emotion. She had spent so long feeling alone, but Ethan's unwavering support made her believe that she and her daughters truly had a future to look forward to. Sophia's routine soon became a well-balanced rhythm of studying, working, and spending quality time with Emma and Lily. Her confidence grew with each small victory, whether it was acing an exam, impressing her colleagues, or simply hearing her daughters giggle as they played. Ethan watched her transformation with admiration. The woman who had once been hesitant and unsure of her worth was now blossoming into someone strong, determined, and full of purpose. "You are building something incredible," he told her one evening as they reviewed a project together. "I wouldn't have gotten here without you," Sophia replied, her voice filled with gratitude. Ethan shook his head. "You are the one doing the work, Sophia. I am just helping you see what you are capable of." As their eyes met, a spark passed between thema connection, growing deeper with every passing day. Sophia knew the journey wasn't over, but for the first time in years, she felt a sense of hope and purpose. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was rebuilding. Sophia's life had begun to settle into a comforting rhythm. Her days were filled with studying, working at Ethan's company, and spending time with her daughters. For the first time in years, she felt hopeful about the future. However, the past she thought she had left behind came crashing back in an unexpected way. It happened one Friday evening as Sophia was preparing dinner for Emma and Lily in the mansion's kitchen. The twins were setting the table, giggling as they decided who got which plate, when the sound of a car pulling up the driveway caught Sophia's attention. Moments later, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Harper went to answer it, and Sophia assumed it was a delivery or one of Ethan's business associates. But when she heard a familiar voice in the foyer, her heart sank. "Sophia!" She froze, her hands gripping the counter. Slowly, she turned to see Jack, the man who had abandoned her and their daughter standing in the doorway. He looked older, his charm now replaced with a worn, disheveled appearance. "What are you doing here, Jack?" Sophia asked, her voice steady but her chest tight. Jack's eyes darted around the luxurious surroundings before settling on her. "I heard you were staying here," he said. "Figured we should talk." "If here is nothing to talk about," Sophia replied sharply, stepping forward to block his view of the girls. Jack smirked, his tone turning defensive. "Come on, Sophia. I am their father. Don't you think I have a right to see them?" Sophia felt her anger rise, but before she could respond, Ethan appeared in the doorway. His presence was calm but commanding, and his gaze immediately fixed on Jack. "What's going on here?" Ethan asked, his voice low and firm. Jack straightened up, clearly intimidated by Ethan's demeanor. "I was just trying to have a conversation with Sophia. It's none of your business." "It becomes my business when you show up uninvited and unannounced," Ethan replied, crossing his arms. "What do you want, Jack?" Jack hesitated, his bravado faltering under Ethan's scrutiny. "I just want to see my kids," he said, though his eyes betrayed a different motive. Sophia stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "You don't get to call them your kids, Jack. You abandoned us when I needed you most. You haven't lifted a finger to support them or even check if they were alive. You don't get to waltz back into our lives now." Jack's smirk vanished, replaced by frustration. "I made mistakes, okay? But I am here now." "Why now?" Ethan interjected. "What do you really want, Jack? Because I doubt it's about making amends." Jack's gaze flickered, and for a brief moment, he looked at the ground. "Fine," he muttered. "I am broke. I figured someone as rich as you could help out. You seem to care about Sophia and the girls so much. Maybe you could spare some cash for their old man." Sophia felt her stomach turn at his words. Any lingering hope that Jack might have changed evaporated in an instant. Ethan took a step closer, his expression hardening. "Get out," he said firmly. Jack opened his mouth to protest, but Ethan's tone left no room for negotiation. "If you come near Sophia or the girls again, I will take legal action. Do you understand me?" Jack glared at Ethan but didn't argue. With a defeated shrug, he turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Sophia stood in the kitchen, her heart racing as she tried to process what had just happened. Ethan walked over to her, his expression softening. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Sophia nodded, though tears were beginning to well in her eyes. "I don't know why I ever thought he might change," she admitted. "You gave him more chances than he deserved," Ethan said. "That's a reflection of your kindness, not his worth." She wiped at her eyes, taking a deep breath. "I just hate that he showed up like that. I don't want Emma and Lily to be hurt by him." "They won't be," Ethan said firmly. "I'll make sure of it." Sophia looked at him, her gratitude evident. "Thank you, Ethan. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," he replied with a small smile. That night, after putting the twins to bed, Sophia sat in the living room, reflecting on the day's events. She realized that confronting Jack had lifted a weight she didn't even know she was carrying. For years, she had blamed herself for his abandonment, but now she saw him for what he truly was, a man who had chosen to walk away. When Ethan joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea, she looked up at him with a newfound determination. "I'm done letting Jack have any power over me," she said. "I am ready to move forward for me, for the girls, and for the life we're building here." Ethan nodded, his admiration for her growing. "You are stronger than you realize, Sophia, and whatever comes next, you won't face it alone." For the first time in years, Sophia felt a sense of closure. The chapter with Jack was finally over, and a brighter future was within reach. As weeks turned into months, the connection between Ethan and Sophia grew stronger with every passing day. It wasn't something either of them had planned, but the bond that formed between them, born from trust, shared experiences, and mutual admiration, became undeniable. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the mansion's garden, Ethan found Sophia sitting on a bench, watching Emma and Lily chase fireflies. She looked serene, a soft smile playing on her lips as her daughter's laughter echoed around them. "Mind if I join you?" Ethan asked, holding 2 steaming mugs of tea. Sophia glanced up and nodded, her smile widening. "Of course." He handed her a mug and took a seat beside her. For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, watching the twins dart across the lawn. "They're so happy here," Sophia said softly, her voice tinged with gratitude. "I don't know how I'll ever thank you for giving us this chance." Ethan shook his head. "You don't have to thank me, Sophia. Seeing you and the girls smile like this, it's enough for me." She turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "You've done so much for us, Ethan, more than anyone ever has. I don't know what we would have done without you." Ethan hesitated, the weight of his feelings pressing against his chest. "It's not just about helping you," he admitted quietly. "I care about you, Sophia, about Emma and Lily. You've brought something into my life I didn't know I was missing." Sophia's breath hitched, her heart racing at his words. She looked away, unsure of how to respond. "Ethan," she began, but he held up a hand, stopping her gently. "You don't have to say anything," he said, his voice steady. "I just wanted you to know how I feel. No pressure, no expectations. I'll be here, no matter what." The vulnerability in his words struck a chord in her. Sophia had spent so long building walls around her heart, convinced she couldn't rely on anyone but herself. Yet Ethan's kindness, patience, and unwavering support had begun to chip away at those defenses. "Ethan," she said, turning to face him again, "I care about you too, but this is all so new to me. I've been focused on surviving for so long I don't even know what it means to let someone in anymore." He nodded, his expression warm and understanding. "Take all the time you need, Sophia. I am not going anywhere." A soft breeze rustled the leaves above them as the twins ran over, interrupting the moment with giggles and arms full of fireflies in jars. Sophia and Ethan both laughed, the tension dissolving as they focused on the girls. That night, as Sophia tucked Emma and Lily into bed, she reflected on Ethan's words. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope not just for a better future, but for the possibility of love. Ethan, sitting alone in the garden, smiled to himself. He was willing to wait as long as it took, because what he felt for Sophia and her daughters was worth every moment. The day of Sophia and Ethan's wedding was nothing short of magical. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the garden of Ethan's mansion, which had been transformed into a haven of flowers and soft lights. The ceremony was intimate, attended only by close friends, colleagues, and a few of Ethan's staff who had become like family. Emma and Lily, dressed in matching white dresses with delicate flower crowns, were ecstatic to serve as flower girls. They giggled as they scattered petals along the aisle, their faces beaming with pure joy. Sophia stood at the end of the aisle, radiant in a simple yet elegant gown, her heart racing as her eyes met Ethan's. As she walked toward him, her mind replayed the journey that had brought them to this moment. From the cold streets where she had struggled to keep her daughters safe to the warmth and stability Ethan had offered, it felt like she was stepping into a dream she hadn't dared to imagine. When they exchanged vows, Ethan's voice was steady and filled with emotion. "Sophia, you've taught me what it means to care for someone beyond myself. You and the girls have given my life a purpose I never knew I needed. I promise to stand by you, to support you, and to love you for the rest of my days." Tears shimmered in Sophia's eyes as she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "Ethan, you saw me at my lowest and didn't just help me, you believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You've not only given me and my daughters a home, but you've given us a family. I promise to love you and to walk beside you through whatever life may bring." As they kissed to seal their vows, the crowd erupted in cheers, and Emma and Lily ran to them, wrapping their arms around the couple. In that moment, the four of them felt like the family they had always meant to be. The days following the wedding were filled with laughter and a renewed sense of purpose. Sophia and Ethan quickly settled into their new roles as partners, parents, and a team. Ethan supported Sophia as she continued her studies and took on more responsibilities at his company. Sophia, in turn, brought a fresh perspective and energy to her work, earning respect and admiration from Ethan's team. Emma and Lily thrived in their new home, their once timid smiles now replaced with unrestrained joy. Ethan made it a point to be present in their lives, from helping them with school projects to playing catch in the backyard. The twins had grown to adore him, and Sophia often caught them calling him Dad without hesitation, a sound that never failed to warm Ethan's heart. One afternoon, as they were enjoying a family picnic in the garden, Sophia turned to Ethan with a thoughtful expression. "I never thought I'd find this," she said, gesturing to the girls as they played with a kite. "This kind of peace, this kind of love." Ethan smiled, taking her hand. "You deserve it, Sophia. You all do. And this is just the beginning." A few months later, Sophia received news that would once again change their lives. After feeling uncharacteristically tired and nauseous, she visited the doctor and learned she was pregnant. When she shared the news with Ethan, his face lit up with an uncontainable smile. "We're having a baby?" he asked, his voice filled with awe. Sophia nodded, her eyes glistening. "We are." Emma and Lily were equally thrilled, excitedly discussing all the things they could teach their new sibling. Ethan became even more attentive, ensuring Sophia had everything she needed and taking on more responsibilities to give her time to rest. When the day came, Ethan was by Sophia's side as she delivered a healthy baby boy. As the sound of the baby's first cries filled the room, tears streamed down Ethan's face. He held the tiny bundle in his arms, his heart swelling with love and pride. "Welcome to the family, little one," he whispered. Emma and Lily couldn't wait to meet their baby brother, promising to be the best big sisters ever. Sophia, watching her family together, felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had gone from feeling abandoned and lost to being surrounded by love and stability. Life at the mansion took on a new rhythm, filled with the chaos and joy of a growing family. Ethan continued to support Sophia's dreams, and together, they worked to create a home filled with laughter and love. One evening, as they sat on the terrace watching the sunset, Sophia leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" she asked softly. "All the time," Ethan replied, wrapping his arm around her. "And I know this is just the beginning. Tea here is so much more ahead of us." Sophia smiled, her heart full. For the first time in years, the future felt brighter than she'd ever dared to hope. Together, they had built something unbreakable, a family forged from love, resilience, and the courage to believe in second chances. This story reminds us of the power of second chances and the strength of human connection. Life can sometimes feel overwhelming, especially when faced with challenges that seem insurmountable. However, just as Sophia found her way back to hope and stability, we can all take steps toward rebuilding our lives, no matter how difficult the journey may seem. Here are a few takeaways to apply to your own life. Don't be afraid to accept help. T here is strength in allowing others to support you during tough times. Accepting kindness isn't a sign of weakness, it's an opportunity to grow and heal. Believe in second chances. Mistakes and hardships don't define you. With determination and effort, you can rewrite your story and create a better future. Build genuine relationships. Like Ethan's unwavering support, the people around you can make a profound difference. Nurture connections that uplift and inspire you. Focus on resilience. No matter how far you've fallen, you can rise again. Each step forward, no matter how small, brings you closer to the life you deserve. Let this story inspire you to keep moving forward, embrace new opportunities, and trust in the power of love and perseverance. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of resilience, love, and second chances. What did this story mean to you? Have you ever experienced a moment where someone's kindness changed your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget, life is full of opportunities to rebuild and grow. If you found this story inspiring, give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need a reminder of the power of hope. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more uplifting stories like this one. Together, let's spread positivity and inspiration. See you in the next video.